Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining. There's probably still a few people that are going to trickle in, but I think it's probably best if we get started. First of all, thanks so much for joining the drop-in session today. As you know, the focus is going to be on topography, LiDAR, elevation data products, and how to create those in Equator and then get them out into other file formats. So I'll start by giving you a broad overview of the platform, what we're all about, some key concepts, and then I'll dive into the details. As you know, I'm Rebecca, one of the company founders, and I may be joined by our senior developer, Alex, who's actually built the majority of the platform. So he might be joining, and that would be really exciting because if you guys have questions for him, he can hop in as well. Does anyone have any questions before we get started or any topics that you're excited to focus on today? Also, feel free to introduce yourself in chat. If anybody wants to share what they do, their background, and yeah, like I said, any questions, just drop that right in chat. Okay. So we are Equator Studios. I know some of you have been around for a while and maybe even attended some of these sessions before. And some of you are brand new, so it's great to get a good mix in here. As I jump into the presentation, I really wanted to start with covering some of the key concepts. I've actually consolidated a lot of the questions that we get with new users of the platform or those that are interested in the platform. And I just thought those concepts would be a great way to start. So as we get into it, just wanted to explain how we came to be. So my experience was in environmental consulting prior to starting Equator Studios. I spent about 10 years working at a big consulting company in Canada. That's where we're based, close to Toronto. And was always looking for data to support the work. I did a lot of stormwater management, plans, designs, hydrology studies, and so on. So a lot of studies that required elevation data, and just found a lot of bottlenecks to accessing that data in the organization, external to the organization, not having great access to GIS software necessarily. It was difficult to make use of the data that I was given. And in some cases, you know, we were waiting weeks for data to arrive on hard drives. So I wanted to put this graphic up on the screen to really illustrate the opportunity that we saw in the early days. We started to realize that trusted government sources, so in the US, USGS, in Canada, different provincial bodies here, we're starting to collect really high quality airborne LiDAR scans. So this is an example here of one of the, I'm just letting in a few more people are joining. Welcome to those that just joined. Okay, so yeah, this is an example of one of the airborne LiDAR scans in the US. And I bring it up just to show how much detail is really in these LiDAR data sets. So this is a roadway. You can see power lines crossing. You can see the trees. You can really clearly see even cars on the road. So there's standards that have been developed for different quality levels of airborne LiDAR data from QL0 all the way up to QL5. And this just shows you what you can expect when working with data that's been classified in that way. So we usually look at vertical accuracy because it tends to be the limiting factor. And QL0 data can be accurate vertically to around 5 centimeters, which is pretty incredible. And so we were just sad to see this data not being used, sitting on the shelf, not being fully accessed and appreciated, especially in the early stages of projects when maybe there isn't a budget to go out and collect topographic survey right away. So that was the inspiration for what we did. And just one more chart that I wanted to show you, even though the data might be classified to a quality level such as QL1, QL2, in some cases, when you drill down into the actual accuracy in the reports that sort of specify what it was tested to, it's even better than that. So I just highlighted in this case, this is a QL2 data set, and it actually exceeds the standard. So 6.4 centimeters. So this is a picture of my brother, and we worked together at an engineering firm. I guess this was back in 2015. We were doing a lot of stormwater pond surveys, and we were slogging through conditions like this. We were in the forest, we were in the brush, we were trying to pick up data in really challenging places. And so surveys like this, it could take us, 10 days just to do this, or sorry, 10 hours just to do this one site. It can be extremely expensive, and oftentimes, there's not a lot of nuance in what you're able to collect when you're out in the field. You're sort of treating everything equally, even though maybe some aspects are more important to the design than others. So we thought, how could we improve access to the great data that's out there? And so we built Equator to basically do that. And so instead of having to always go out to site and collect new data, there are some use cases that lend itself really well to taking advantage of existing trusted government sources of data. So this is the Equator platform. It's joining. Welcome, Scott. This is the Equator platform, and I'll jump into it in a minute, but basically what we've done is connected to various APIs, Canada, in the US, all around the world, as well as actually physically mailed out hard drives in some cases to consolidate existing data sources and centralize them. So that the experience is sort of like working in Google Earth, but if you had much more accurate elevation data built in. And so what we do is we take those data sources, the point cloud in some cases, and we convert that data product into other data products on demand. So when you're working in Equator, you probably don't need the entire data set. There could be a large data set in Texas that covers multiple counties. You likely don't need that entire data set. And in fact, it would be a burden to work with the whole data set because it's going to bog down your CAD software. These files are massive. They're going to be difficult to access and store and work with. So what we do is when you set up a site in Equator, you can actually specify that you need data just for that site and what product you need from it. So we take the LiDAR point cloud, and if you want contours, what we do is we take the points and we generate them into contours for you with the exact specifications that you need in terms of resolution and contour interval. Just to highlight a few products that we have built in, the elevation products, contours, the point cloud, contours plus you can get imagery, as well as digital elevation model. We've recently added a new product, which is Parcels, which if you're interested, we can save some time and I'll show you how to access that at the end. In terms of coverage, this is something we get asked a lot. We don't actually collect any data as a company. Like we don't go out there and fly planes or fly drones and collect the data. We're more of an aggregator. We're just consolidating it. So we don't have any control over what data exists, though we're keeping close tabs on new data sets that are coming down the pipe. We have two types of elevation data in the platform. There is LiDAR data. So this is LiDAR point cloud data where we actually have the point cloud. And then there's LiDAR derived data. So what this means is that one of our sources, let's say the USGS, has already taken the LiDAR and turned it into a derivative product, like a digital elevation model. And so I'll highlight those in the platform. But yeah, generally two different types. And you can access this coverage map on our website to see which data is available in your area. But even more importantly, you can figure that right out in the platform. Once you've set up a site, you'll be able to see right away what are all the options to you. I just want to pause for a sec. If anyone does have questions at any step of this, like it would be great. We're eating lunch here, we're having coffee. If you want to interrupt and ask a more specific question, we can definitely do that. All right. So how we process the data. So when you've set up a site in an area where there is LiDAR point cloud available to you, and you request a product that is not the LiDAR point cloud, what we do is we actually have a processing tool chain that is on our servers. Nothing's actually being processed on your side. It's all happening on our side. We take the LiDAR point cloud and then... Hi, Scott. Oh, you might not be muted. Maybe I'll just mute him. There we go. Okay. So we take the point cloud and then we actually use various tools to process it into a digital elevation model. And then if you want contours, what we do is we take this DEM and we generate the contours from it. And then we throw away the DEM and you just get the contours. So there's a few different steps in it, and then ultimately it gets sent to you, the client, on your end, and it's visualized on the screen. This is a 3D platform, so what we're doing if you request contours is we're actually draping them and showing them off in 3D, so that if you tilt the map, you'll be able to see that. Maybe some of you who are existing Equator users have run into this problem or have had this question before. Contours is by far our most popular product. That's why I wanted to bring this up. We get asked all the time, why are my contours so jagged? And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about what's happening here. You know, the LiDAR data, as I said in the beginning, can be quite accurate. So what that means is it's picking up all the nuances of your site. You know, if the topography changes from a centimeter to that centimeter, it's going to be represented. So oftentimes the tendency is to think, you know, when I'm generating contours, I should just go for the highest resolution available to me. This is what you're going to get as a result. Basically, you're going to see all the detail in the actual contour line. So there is a time and place for that detail, especially when you're building surfaces in Civil 3D and you care about quantities being accurate. But oftentimes when we're creating visuals, say for a presentation or public information center or for a graphic for a report, we don't actually want that much detail. So this is where resolution really comes into play. And what I want to highlight here is that there's two different choices when you're creating contours. You can first choose the resolution, which basically specifies, you know, I said they were created from the DEM. So the resolution is related to the DEM. We first create the DEM and it's related to the grid cell size. So it's averaging the points over a certain grid size. And here you can see it's obviously higher resolution. You can barely even make out the grid, and here it's lower. So when you've specified 1 foot resolution, for example, you're going to get a really detailed DEM. And then when you specify 1 foot contour intervals, you're going to see all of that detail in here. But if you're looking for something that's more like this, then what I would recommend is specify a lower resolution. So bump that up to 10 or play around with it, another number that makes sense based on the size of your site. And then you can still output a 1 foot contour interval. Still going to get the same interval, but you're going to have smoother contours over that site. For those of you that are working in Civil 3D and want to get into the details, we actually have a really good article on our website, LiDAR versus DEM versus contours, where we go through, we even have a video that shows you in detail how to basically export the data product so that you can get a really nice looking surface in Civil 3D. The other question that we get a lot, this isn't just related to contours, this is any of the data products, but you've downloaded your data from Equator and say you want to open it in CAD software, AutoCAD or any other tool. Very often the data doesn't land in the right spot on the first try. So just wanted to highlight this as a common problem, and we're going to spend some time when we actually go into the platform. I'm going to show you how you can make sure that when you export your data from Equator, when you download it, it's going to land in the right spot in your CAD software. Okay, so those were the concepts that I wanted to touch on before I dove into the platform. I'm making a lot of assumptions that I have people on the call that are interested in CAD related problems. Am I off on that? Is there anyone here that's working in other software, or feel free to type in the chat if I'm totally off base. Okay. Let's switch over to Equator then. Great, thanks. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Just trying to remember how to switch my screen. So you should now be seeing the Equator mapping platform. If you are not, somebody thumbs down or let me know. Okay. Good. Perfect. Thank you. So this is the interface. I'll just walk you through a high-level overview. I am going to note that there's a few extra buttons on mine just because we've been experimenting over the years with different features. But when you visit the Equator platform, what you'll see here is data, layers, and projects. And you can access Equator right now on this call if you go to this address. So maps.equatorstudios.com. I'll put that in chat. There you go. So yes, we have all of our data products, which I already alluded to. We have layers. We don't actually have any layers added yet. So once we do that, I will show you how to manage them. And then we have projects. So over time, you might be working in different, for different clients, different projects, different locations. You can use the project menu to manage those different projects. And then over here, we have our toolbar. So when it comes to annotating the map, creating markups, measurements, all of that is going to be in here. You can turn that on and off. And if you want to change the units down at the bottom, I'm just going to highlight some of the most important things here. Bring that out of the way. There's actually a karate class below me. We rented an office in a funny spot where, yeah, there ended up being a martial arts studio below. So if you can hear them, I apologize for that. Okay, so let's get a site set up. I am going to find a location down in Texas somewhere. Let's see. Pick a spot with a bit of infrastructure. I like to try to find more interesting. There we go. Let's find a crossing. Yeah, perfect. So say this is my site here. We're working on a creek restoration under this highway. What I'm going to do is first set up my project site. So I'm going to click on New Site down at the bottom. If you forget that and you go straight to Data Product first, that's totally fine. There's a way to set it up from there as well. And then once you're in the new site builder, you have a few different preset choices, but of course you can always create your own custom site as well by just dragging down points. Close that off. And then I'm going to start by adding the point cloud to my site just so that you can get a sense of what that looks like. So I already showed you a coverage map that shows you a broad overview of where we have coverage and we don't have coverage. But once you've set up your site, you're going to see a lot more specific information. Unfortunately, I picked a spot that just has one data set, but if there was multiple data sets, you would see them here. So it's going to show you who's the provider. In this case, it's the USGS. And it's going to show you some information about that data set. So we have the actual name, who's provided it, the dates over which it was collected, and then the quality level. If you click on learn more about the data set, it's going to take you to an external page, a website that's not ours. It would, in this case, be the USGS, and you can dive in deeper. When you're in an area where there's multiple data sets, you can use different filters here or quality level filters. And you can also, we have tags here that will show you what's the highest quality, what's the newest, just to make it easy. Once I've selected it, I can just click on continue and then click on generate. And like I said, this is all happening on the back end. Nothing is being processed on your computer. It's just being processed on our side. And then we send it over to your project. So here it is. Here's the LiDAR data for that site. And if you want to look at it in 3D, I always recommend using a mouse because it's easier to do it when you're using a mouse. You can use the right click button there to rotate it. There we go. And automatically what we're doing, which is really cool, is we've tried to figure out what are the maximum and the minimum elevations in this point cloud data set. And then we automatically try to create a good color band that represents that. So you can see that right here. If you want to improve how it's visualized, you can click into that layer and you can do some further edits here. So right now, by default, all classifications of points are included. And what I mean by that is when these surveys are created, there's different ways that the points can be classified. Most basic form is it ground or is it not ground? And most of the data in Equator, really, you only have two choices, ground points or non-ground. But if you were to hire an airborne surveyor to go out there and collect it for your project, you could get a lot more detailed and they could determine whether it's vegetation, impervious areas, and so on. So I'll show you what it looks like if I just use only ground points. So I've basically turned off everything that's not ground, and you can see, you know, a lot more detail about the actual topography. Now, for visualization, if you do want to get this out for a report, there's different ways that you can control the symbology down here. I'm not going to go into detail about that because I find most people are actually interested in how do I get the data out into other software. But what I will say is if you do like the way that it's visualized, you want to include it in a proposal, you want to include it in a report, you can click on the screenshot button at the top, F4, or actual icon, and you're going to get a high quality screenshot from that. Okay, LiDAR point cloud. And I said I would talk about cross sections as well. If you're interested in taking some quick cross sections from the data before you actually set things up in another software, you can do that in the toolbar here. Basically, just drop down 2 points. And what we're doing is we're sampling from the point cloud. So it's not coming from surface model, it's coming specifically from the points. So wherever there's a point, it's going to pick it up. And you can just do ground only as well. So I used to do creek work, a lot of headcrest models, and I, before I learned how to use Civil 3D, struggled a lot to get cross sections. So this would have been really helpful back when I was doing that. You probably want to download it. So here's the download button. You're going to get a CSV. You're going to get all the information. You're going to get northing, easting, elevation, classification, how to access the cross-section tool. Yeah, it's right. Somebody just asked to see that again. So it's in the toolbar. You're going to have to open it up. And then it will be the fourth one down. It is important to note that if you haven't added a point cloud to your site, we might have changed this. I'm going to see what happens if you take a cross section where there's no point cloud loaded. Okay, there you go. So even if you haven't loaded in the point cloud data, it's still going to sample from the point cloud if there's one available in that area, which is very cool.
What?
Hearing something there.
Being deaf.
Okay, muted. I'm going to mute all actually. So if you want to speak, just let me know. Hopefully you can still hear me. Yes. Okay. Yeah, so if you have multiple data sets, you'll be able to just control which one you want to see as well by clicking this button on the side. And then when you export it, similarly, you'll get all those different options. So sometimes, you know, for creeks in particular, you might want to know how it's changed over time. And if you're lucky enough to have a site that's been scanned with LiDAR over many years, then you'll be able to see that. We usually get asked, like, when will there be new data for this particular site? And again, we don't necessarily know, but our general observation is that areas where there's a lot of development or there's been some sort of natural disaster or areas where there's a lot of erosion and ongoing monitoring is needed. So for example, in California, if you look at the coastline there, you'll see there's like, in some cases, 10 data sets overlapping. So a lot of the data collection is tied to funding. And so you can, probably the best way is to keep track of the USGS and NOAA projects if you're in the US. I'm just reading the comment. Does Received a survey that didn't quite cover the entire site. Used Equator for the remaining missing half. Love the site. Thank you so much. Oh, that's good to hear. Awesome. Just 1 second. I'm using a new mouse and I just changed the speed. Okay, I don't know. So layers. Now that I have a couple layers, I have my cross section, I have the point cloud. I can control which layers are on and off by toggling the eyeball. And if I want to do some formatting, I can click into this. This is called the kebab menu, this 3 dots, and it will give you the ability to do different things like delete it. If you click on it, you're going to get some formatting options. So you can change the, oh, I'm actually editing the cross section. Should be able to change the color. I don't know why that's not working. Okay, that's fine. Let's turn these off and go back to the data menu. So we've got our point cloud. Now let's do digital elevation model. So similarly, select your source, click on continue. And then here's where you're going to have the opportunity to make a choice about what resolution you're looking for. For smaller sites, yeah, it's great to leverage the full highest resolution possible that the solution will allow you to get out. If you're looking at a larger area, I would recommend being a little bit more mindful in terms of the resolution that you use, just because, you know, if you're creating a DEM with more detail than you need, then you might find that it just causes you trouble down the road. So in this case, I'll do 1 foot because it's a small site and it's going to process that data. If you're really curious, you can actually follow the progress of it being processed and you can see some of the tools that we're using in doing so. Okay. So we have our DEM. One thing I'm going to say, I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but I'm going to say it just so that you guys are aware if you're going to use this right after. You can create a DEM and in the areas where there is vegetation or structure, basically non-ground points. In this DEM that I just created, it actually didn't use them. So it has a bunch of holes in it, which probably you don't want a DEM with holes in it. So if you go into create the product again, what you can do is click on advanced customizations and you can uncheck this and then click on generate and it's going to do it again. And it's going to actually interpolate in those areas. I mean, this is good to see because obviously there's no data where those structures are. So you should be aware of that. But if you don't want to see those holes, you want it to be interpolated or averaged over that area, then you can check that box. Okay, so the last product in the chain is contours. So I want to have smooth contours. So I'm going to do 5 foot resolution, but I want to be able to read them in 1 foot interval, in a 1 foot interval. So I'll see that. There we go. Awesome. So it's loaded in. Those look really good. Somebody just asked a question in chat. If Equator offers subscription package for companies. Yeah, we usually people just find us and buy like an individual subscription. But what we can do if it's a company and there's more people that are interested is we can set it up so that anyone with the company email can use it. And then we just go off of like a credit-based system for the company. So you just can reach out and we can figure out how to set that up for your company. Makes it easier. Then you don't have to manage all these different accounts. Okay, so we have contours now. If you want to read the elevation from the contour, you can click on it and it's going to bring up the attribute table. So here, contour ID, the coordinates, and then the elevation in feet and the elevation in meters. There's actually a way to label the contours. It's pretty hidden. We need to make this a little bit more accessible, but I will show you how to do it. You can click on, so what I did was I clicked on the contour in the layer menu. I went to labels. I'm going to click on enable. And then it's pretty powerful. It's just a little, it doesn't look as intuitive to use. You can basically specify what you want the label to include. Now, this is coming from the attribute table that I just showed you. You can click on elevation in meters. Actually, let me do feet. And then you click on add spot label. And then wherever you drop it down, it's going to snap to that line. I wouldn't want my contours to have this extra. Oh, sorry, you have to actually click on add spot label to stop labeling. But what I wouldn't want my contours to say elevation in brackets feet and then that. So it's actually kind of cool. You can edit this property. You can just delete that. And then you can actually type stuff after. So then as a group, it will edit that whole label property. And I can change how that's formatted. So if I want it to be light or dark, I can click on it that way. If I want to change the size, there we go. And if you want it in 3D, I actually kind of like that label. It looks kind of cool. So you play around with those. I won't go into too much more detail on that point. There's a question. It says, in the future of developing this program, will you guys ever transition from web to downloadable, such as Civil 3D? I don't know. That's a good question. But what I will say is that we do offer, you can download, quote unquote, Equator for use on your desktop. I'll send that out after. Alex, if you're on this call, maybe now is a good time to jump in and explain how to do that. No, I don't see him. But yeah, basically there's a way to run it off of your desktop. It's still a web application, but you would have that icon, that access point from your desktop. And so you wouldn't actually have the browser bar and different things. I don't know if we'll ever have desktop application, but if we do, is that something that, yeah, actually what I'll say is for feature requests in general, what we love to do is capture the user story and the use case. And we do keep pretty good track of all that stuff. And if we ever start to see converging user stories and use cases, then that's what really gets our attention. We start to go down that route. Okay, so let's get to the fun part, which is downloading the data. Actually, before I do that, I'm just gonna say there's a bunch of other products in here. So for example, printable CNC mesh. This is a product that a lot of hobbyists tend to use if they're making, a CNC art, topography, landscape, if you want to 3D print your site. So you can go in and access that product. It's going to do the same thing. We're going to take the LiDAR, we're going to turn it into just a slightly different file format. Hillshade digital surface model is very similar to the digital elevation model, except it's going to have the trees and buildings on it. And then there's some imagery products as well too. Now the imagery, I'll say the resolution, the quality of it really depends on where you're working. It's just one global layer that's stitched together. So if you're working in an urban environment where, as I said, there's a lot of development going on, maybe there's a good reason why there's a more recent photo, then it's going to be higher quality. But I found in some areas, especially Northern Ontario, Northern Canada, it's just not really that great. So I find it's useful to place the elevation data, but not necessarily going to replace getting a higher quality photo from another source if you need that. Okay, so downloading data. When you're in your layers menu, this is where you're going to be able to download your data from. I'll start with contours. At the moment, each layer that you create or each layer that you want is downloaded separately. This is something we've got a lot of requests about, is being able to download all of the data into one file. So we're taking that seriously. We're thinking about how we might allow you to do that in the future. But at the moment, it's one layer at a time. So you click on the blue download button. The first step is to specify the file format that you want, because there's additional options depending. I'm going to go with DWG in this case. And the most important step is really, especially for those in CAD, is coordinate system. We've spent a lot of time over the years trying to figure out how to make this easier and to provide good recommendations. This is the latest that we've landed on, which is we're making recommendations for you with these blue circles and with other things being grayed out. Before it was just a long list, and you know how many options there are. So when you open this up, you have the choice of searching by name. So if you were looking for Texas something, you can type it in and it's going to start to refine that list for you. Personally, I find the best thing to do is to actually use this EPSG code because you can be really, really, really precise. When you're working in Civil 3D or CAD software, your drawing may be set up with coordinate system already there. If you can figure out what that is in EPSG code, that's the best way to do it. There's actually a site, it's called epsg.io. You can use the search there, figure out what you have, figure out the code. And then when you know the code, just put it in here. If you don't know the code, that's fine. I just want to say that sometimes there is a little bit of trial and error that goes into it. If it doesn't work the first time, keep note of what you used and try another one. This is not something that we can control necessarily. It's just because we don't know what drawing you're working in. We don't know what you've got going on the other end. So all we can do is make good recommendations, and then we'll have to figure out which one works. So select the one you want. You can make it the default for the project once you figured it out, and then click on process. So we reprocess the data again so that we make sure that we have all of the right geographic information when you open it on your end. And then you're going to get a zip file. You're going to get a zip file with your DWG with a README file. So unzip that, and then you'll be able to open it up. See some of the other options here. Shapefile. So if you're working in GIS software, QGIS or ArcGIS, shapefile, great format to work with. SVG is more applicable for those working in design tools. So Illustrator, InDesign, still a vector file, but it's going to be in a file format that those kinds of software like. And it's a very similar process with the other layers that we created too. I'm not going to show you DEM because it's exactly the same, but I'm going to show you the point cloud. So with the point cloud, you now just choose, do you want LAS or LAS with just the ground points? That's pretty popular. Most of the time, the users we speak to, they just want the ground points. So check that. And then, well, I've already made this the default for my project, this coordinate system. So it's going to use that correct coordinate system. But if you haven't done that, search for it again. Click on process. Okay, there we go. Any questions about the download flow? Okay. Turn all of this off. Somebody is asking about parcels. Irina, parcels. So let's take a look at that. Yes, this is a new product that we recently added to the platform, and it's a bit of a different flow when you want to add parcels to your site. What you have to do is basically put down points. So when you click on place points, it's going to bring up a preview of all of the parcels that are available in that area. And then using the points, what you want to do is put the point in the center of the parcel that you're interested in. Not on the edge, not anywhere else, just the center. And then click on generate. And that should load in. Oh, it's off. I'm not sure why. Oh, because my site is off. I turned off that site. those parcels were associated with that site. Okay. So yes, those were the 4 parcels that I selected, and now they've loaded in. What's very cool is you can click on it and you can start to, again, get the attributes from it right away. So the name, there's actually a lot more fields here that you might want to read through. If you need to expand this, you have the option down here. And then you can read off all of the information. Any of the layers that you have loaded in, you can label. It's again, just hidden at the bottom there. So I can start to pick what I want to label this parcel by, and then I can drop that down. Or if you want to download it and get it out into another software, you can click on that, and then you can choose from DWG, shape, GeoJSON, and process it in the same way that I showed. Oh, Ryan, thank you for the tip. You told me the layer is off. Yeah, you can process it in the same way as you've done the other ones. Okay. 10 parcels at a time, correct? Yes, yes. We're going to make this easier. It is limited to 10 parcels at a time. Depending on the plan that you are on, you're going to have a monthly limit. So we're going to remove that 10 and just have it be, your monthly limit. And we have to tweak those limits a little bit because we're finding that people are picking, sometimes they're getting the wrong parcels that they don't necessarily want, and it's contributing to their monthly limit. And so if that happens to you, like, just let us know in the short term, let us know that that's happened. We can reset it for you. But otherwise, yeah, this is a feature that we're working on improving. Okay, I have about 15 minutes left. What didn't I cover that you all want to see? There's a question from Jordan. There are some public data sets that have been updated, but haven't been included with Equator. Is this like USGS, from the USGS 3DEP source, or is this another source? Or just in general, are you asking?
Honestly, I'm not actually sure because there's like a like the water board in Colorado aggregates them into a map, so I don't actually know where the source data is
Oh,
from.
okay. Okay. Yeah. So if it's an existing source that we have, what we do periodically is we just refresh that source. So we've got the latest and greatest. If it's a new source, then yeah, it's possible that we can add it. It just might take some time. Please do send us your requests. It would be great to know specifically, like if you have a link to it, if you have a name, any information, then we can do a bit more of an assessment to see how quickly or not we can get it in.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Ryan. One question that I wish people would ask us about or use more often is real-time sharing and collaboration. So since we have a few minutes left, I am just going to show you guys this because why not? If you're working with other people and you want to show them the site, so you're bidding on proposal, you've marked up this map, you've made something that looks really good, you can actually share this with others. I can create a link and all of you can edit it. I can copy this and drop it in chat. If you were to click on that, is anyone brave enough to click on it? Maybe an existing Equator user. Yay, so I'm seeing some guests joining. There's Jordan. Yeah. So this is really cool. It's really nice to be able to point at things. I remember, when I was in the office, we're half remote now, but being in the office with your boss, they want to show you something on Google Earth, you kind of cluster around their desk and you point at it with your fingers. we don't always have the luxury of doing that these days. So this is a really nice way to share with people remotely, and you can actually use the tools in the toolbar right now. You should be able to add to this map. So if you wanted to make a markup, if you wanted to draw on the map, everyone will be able to do this. And it's really fun. We used to do this for team social sometimes, just all get together and test the platform and draw different things. So yeah, this is just one thing. I just thought I'd throw it in at the end since we have some time. But I know you guys probably have to get back to the rest of your day. So I'll stop here and say thank you very much for joining today. This has been awesome. I'll stick around for the next 10 minutes if anyone wants to chat. But if you want to learn more about how you can use Equator for work or for anything else, feel free to email me. I'll put my email in the chat. We also can set up onboarding if anyone wants that for their company. We're happy to do lunch and learns. Studios.com. Yes, I can make the video available for training. We have also a lot of resources on YouTube and through our website as well, but I'd be happy to share it. And like I said, reach out if you have anything that you need. We're pretty accessible. We're a small team, but we get a lot done. And that's all for today. So thank you. I'll stop sharing my screen, but I will stick around if anyone wants to chat.